The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber swung open with a deep rumble that echoed through the cavernous space. Ambassador Allison Gray took a deep breath as she led the small team of 5 humans into the vast circular room. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her face remained calm. This moment would determine the fate of Earth and all humanity. The council chamber stretched upward for hundreds of feet, its walls lined with tiered seating occupied by representatives of over 300 species from across the galaxy. Bioluminescent creatures provided natural lighting that shifted colors as they floated near the high ceiling. The air smelled of strange spices and alien biochemistry. Allison and her team walked slowly down the central pathway toward the raised platform where the 7 High Counselors sat. Each High Counselor belonged to one of the founding species of the Galactic Alliance. They watched the humans approach with expressions that ranged from curiosity to open hostility. The tallest counselor, a being with blue crystalline skin and 4 arms, leaned forward. "Humans of Earth," its voice boomed through translators worn by Allison and her team. "You stand before this council accused of violating the borders of protected space, developing forbidden technology, and resisting lawful scanning of your home world. How do you respond to these charges?" Allison stepped forward. The diplomatic specialist had been chosen for this mission because of her quick thinking and unshakable composure. "High Counselors, distinguished representatives," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "We come before you not as violators, but as explorers who did not know the laws we are accused of breaking." A ripple of muttering spread through the chamber. A reptilian counselor with scales that shimmered like oil on water hissed loudly. "Ignorance of galactic law is no excuse. Your species was quarantined for a reason." "A quarantine we were never informed of," Allison replied. "Until 3 months ago, humanity believed itself alone in the universe." "Impossible," shouted a small furry counselor with 6 eyes. "The warning beacons have orbited your system for 10,000 years. Dr. Marcus Bell, the science officer, stepped forward beside Allison. "The beacons were destroyed during a solar flare event approximately 2,000 years ago. We found fragments in the outer reaches of our system but could not decipher their purpose." The blue crystalline counselor raised a hand for silence as the chamber erupted in debate. "This is a serious claim that must be verified, but it does not excuse the development of your quantum displacement technology, which violates the Treaty of 7 Stars." Captain Diana Foster, the military liaison, spoke next. "Our quantum displacement drive was developed independently, with no knowledge of galactic restrictions. It was our first attempt to reach beyond our star system." The 7 counselors conferred among themselves, their translators turned off. The chamber remained tense with anticipation. Allison exchanged glances with her team. Dr. Bell, Captain Foster, Cultural Specialist William Patel, and Security Chief Laura Reese. They had trained for months for this moment, but nothing could have prepared them for the overwhelming reality of standing before representatives of hundreds of advanced civilizations. Finally, the crystalline counselor turned back to them. "We will verify your claims about the warning beacons. In the meantime, you will surrender all quantum displacement technology and submit to a full scan of your planet." Allison had anticipated this demand. It was time for humanity's unexpected strategy. "With respect, High Counselors, we cannot agree to those terms." Gasps and angry shouts filled the chamber. The reptilian counselor stood up, eyes flashing. "You dare to refuse the Council's decree?" "We do not refuse," Allison clarified quickly. "We simply request the rights granted under the Galactic Charter, Article 7, which states that any newly discovered species has the right to a cultural assessment before technological restrictions are imposed." Silence fell over the chamber. Many representatives looked confused, while others appeared impressed. The crystalline counselor tilted its head. "You have studied our laws." "We have," said Allison. "When your scout ship was captured in our orbit, we downloaded its database. We have spent 3 months learning everything we could about the Galactic Alliance, its laws, and its politics." William Patel stepped forward, holding up a small device. "We also learned that 15 years ago, the Council passed the Resolution of Cultural Preservation, which forbids the forced scanning of worlds with unique cultural development patterns. Earth qualifies under subsections 3, 5, and 9. The furry counselor stood up, all 6 eyes blinking rapidly. "They are correct, and most newly discovered species do not even know these provisions exist." "That is not all," Allison continued, sensing the shift in the room. We have evidence that our world was not simply forgotten but deliberately isolated. She nodded to Dr. Bell, who projected a hologram from his device. It showed fragments of an alien device found buried in Earth's Arctic ice. This is not part of a warning beacon. It is a monitoring station. Someone has been watching Earth for centuries, in violation of the Non-Interference Treaty. The chamber erupted again, this time with accusations flying between different alien factions. The High Counselors looked troubled. The crystalline one raised all four arms for silence. These are serious allegations that require investigation, it announced. Until such time as the truth can be determined, humanity will be granted provisional protected status. No scanning or technology surrender will be required at this time. Allison felt a wave of relief wash over her but kept her expression neutral. This was only the beginning. You will be assigned quarters here at Council headquarters during the investigation, the counselor continued. Ambassador Gray and her team will represent Earth's interests. As they were led from the chamber by Council guards, Laura Reese leaned close to Allison. That went better than expected. Phase 1 complete, Allison whispered. But now we need to find out who isolated Earth and why. The real challenge is just beginning. Behind them, the massive doors closed, leaving the Council in heated debate over the unexpected arrival of humans and their surprising knowledge of galactic politics. No one noticed the small drone that detached from the ceiling and followed the human delegation. Its optical sensors focused intently on Ambassador Gray. The quarters assigned to the human delegation were luxurious by Earth standards, but clearly designed for beings with different physiological needs. The gravity felt slightly off, the air carried unfamiliar scents, and the lighting had an odd bluish tint that made human skin look sickly. Allison gathered her team in the central room, away from the walls and any obvious surveillance devices. They formed a tight circle, their bodies blocking any potential visual monitoring. Dr. Bell activated a small jamming device that emitted a low hum. We have 10 minutes before they detect and bypass the jamming, he whispered. Make it quick. First impressions? Allison asked, looking at each team member in turn. William Patel, his dark eyes thoughtful, spoke first. The council is divided. Did you notice how the reptilian and crystalline counselors seemed at odds? There's factional politics at play here. Captain Foster nodded. The military representatives were surprised by our knowledge. They expected us to be primitive, easily intimidated. We've bought ourselves time, but they're reassessing us as a potential threat now. The mention of the monitoring station in the Arctic got a strong reaction, Laura Reese noted. Someone in that chamber knows about it and didn't expect us to find it. Dr. Bell checked his device. 7 minutes. We need to discuss our next move. Allison straightened her shoulders. We stick to the plan. William and Marcus will research Council archives using our provisional access. Find anything you can about Earth's quarantine and who might have placed that monitoring station. Diana and Laura, map the station layout, security protocols, and identify potential allies among the other species. And you? Captain Foster asked. I'll be the public face keeping the Council occupied while you work. The crystalline counselor seems the most reasonable. I'll focus on building rapport there. A chime sounded at their door. Dr. Bell quickly deactivated the jammer and slipped it into his pocket. The door slid open to reveal a slender being with pale, almost translucent skin and large, dark eyes. It wore robes marked with the symbol of the Council Diplomatic Corps. Ambassador Gray, it said in a surprisingly melodic voice, I am Alara, assigned as your liaison during your stay. The Council requests your presence for a formal interview in 1 hour. Just me or my entire team? Allison asked. Just you, Ambassador. Your team may explore the public areas of the station with proper escorts. Ilara's expression was unreadable, but something in its voice suggested concern. I should mention that many species here have never seen a human before. You may encounter curiosity. After Ilara left, William laughed softly. Curiosity? That's diplomatic speak for they might stare, poke, or try to take samples of you. Use it to your advantage, son, Allison advised. People reveal more when they're curious. An hour later, Allison followed Ilara through the sprawling council headquarters. The structure was vast, a city unto itself with different gravitational zones and atmospheric bubbles to accommodate the needs of thousands of species. They passed beings of all descriptions. Some walked on tentacles, others floated in anti-gravity harnesses, and still others moved in ways that defied human understanding of locomotion. Alara led Allison to a small chamber where three beings waited. The blue, crystalline counselor, a tall, willowy alien with bark-like skin, and a being composed of what appeared to be shifting liquid metal. Ambassador Gray, the crystalline being said, "I am High Counselor Trezix. These are Elder Botanist Vroon and Security Director Meplath. We will conduct your interview." Allison bowed respectfully. "I'm honored by your attention, High Counselor. Please sit." Trezix gestured to a chair that adjusted itself to human proportions as Allison approached. "This is not a formal hearing, merely a chance for us to understand humanity better." The questions began simply enough. Details about Earth's history, government structures, technological development. Allison answered truthfully when possible, vague when necessary. She had been carefully briefed on what information to share and what to protect. "Your species developed space travel rather quickly," Meplath observed, its liquid metal form rippling. "From atmospheric flight to quantum displacement in less than 2 centuries. Most species take at least 5 centuries to make such advances." "Humans adapt quickly," Allison replied. "Necessity has often driven our innovations." Vroon, the bark-skinned being, leaned forward. Its voice rustled like leaves. "What necessity drove you to develop technology that could tear holes in space-time?" "Survival," Allison said simply. "Our planet faces numerous environmental challenges. We needed to find new resources, perhaps even new homes. Yet your world has been isolated, supposedly for your protection," Trezix noted. "Does it not seem strange that someone would wish to keep humanity contained?" Allison met the crystalline being's gaze directly. "That is exactly what we wish to understand, High Counselor. Who benefits from keeping humanity ignorant of the galactic community?" Meanwhile, across the station, the other team members were conducting their own investigations. William and Dr. Bell had gained access to the public archives, while Captain Foster and Laura Reese were on a cultural tour that just happened to pass by key security checkpoints. In the archives, William discovered something disturbing. "Marcus," he whispered, pointing to his screen. "Look at this classification report on Earth. We're listed as potential war world extreme caution." Dr. Bell frowned. "That's a standard classification for aggressive species, but the data they're basing it on..." He scrolled through the file. "This is all wrong. They've only collected data on our conflicts, our weapons development. There's nothing here about art, medicine, cooperation." "It's a deliberately skewed assessment," William agreed. "Someone wants the Council to see humans as dangerous." Across the station, Captain Foster pretended to admire an alien art installation while actually studying the security drone patterns overhead. Laura Reese engaged their guide with questions while surreptitiously scanning nearby systems with a device disguised as a translator. 3 major security hubs, Laura murmured to Diana, rotating patrol patterns, and something interesting. Security gets tighter near Section 42, but our guide avoided mentioning what's there. Restricted archives, perhaps? Diana suggested. Worth investigating. Back in the interview chamber, the questioning had taken a more pointed turn. "Your species has a history of internal conflict," Meplath said, displaying holographic images of Earth's wars. "How can the Council trust that you won't bring such violence to the stars?" Allison felt a flicker of anger but kept her expression neutral. "Every species in the Council has a history of conflict. The difference is how we learn from it. Humanity has made great strides toward peaceful cooperation. Yet you arrived in a ship equipped with weapons," Meplath countered. "Defensive capabilities only," Allison corrected, "necessary for a species venturing into unknown territory for the first time." Trezix raised a crystalline hand. "Enough, Meplath. The ambassador makes a fair point." The High Counselor turned to Allison. "One final question, Ambassador Gray. If you discover who isolated Earth and why, what do you intend to do with that information?" Allison considered her answer carefully. "We seek understanding, not revenge. If Earth was isolated for a valid reason, we wish to address those concerns. If it was done for more self-interested purposes, we would ask the Council to correct this injustice." As the interview concluded, Allison couldn't shake the feeling that she was being measured against some unknown standard. And somewhere in the vast Council headquarters, the answers they sought were hidden, waiting to be discovered, along with the truth about humanity's place in a galaxy that had deliberately kept them in the dark. Night cycle in the council station brought dimmed lighting and reduced activity, but never true darkness or silence. The station operated continuously, accommodating species with vastly different biological rhythms. For the human delegation, this third cycle since their arrival felt crucial. They had made discoveries that needed immediate action. Allison sat at the central table in their quarters, reviewing data collected by her team. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to form a disturbing picture. The classification of Earth as a war world wasn't made by the Council's evaluation committee, William explained, displaying his findings on a holographic projector. It was entered directly by an entity with upper-level clearance approximately 300 Earth years ago. Right after the monitoring station was placed in the Arctic, Dr. Bell added. Too convenient to be coincidence. Captain Foster pointed to a station schematic they had assembled from their observations. Section 42, the high-security area, houses the Ancestral Records Archive. According to station gossip, it contains pre-council historical documents dating back thousands of years. If someone wanted to hide evidence of interference with Earth, that's where they'd bury it, Laura suggested. Allison nodded slowly. So we need access to a restricted archive in the most heavily guarded section of the station. Any ideas? Dr. Bell smiled slightly. Actually, yes. During my conversation with the archive's assistant curator, a rather talkative, being from the Pleiades, I learned that council founders are granted special access, privileges that extend to their diplomatic guests. And how does that help us? Laura asked. High Counselor Trezix has shown interest in human culture. I suggested a cultural exchange. Earth music in return for access to historical records about first contact protocols. The curator approved it contingent on Trezix's authorization. Allison raised an eyebrow. And will Trezix authorize it? I believe so, William interjected. The Crystalline Confederation values knowledge exchange as a fundamental diplomatic practice. To refuse would violate their own cultural norms. It's a start, Allison decided. But we need more. Laura, what did you find about the security systems? The security chief pulled up her own data. 3 overlapping systems. Biometric, quantum-locked, and AI monitored. But there's a vulnerability during shift changes when the systems recalibrate. Approximately 90 seconds of reduced sensitivity. A soft chime interrupted them. Allison quickly dispersed the holographic displays as the door slid open. Ilara entered, looking uncharacteristically tense. Ambassador Gray, I apologize for the late visit, but there's been a development. The translator rendered Ilara's voice as calm, but the being's pale skin had taken on a faint purple hue, a sign of stress Allison had learned. The Council has received a formal protest against humanity's presence from the Drax hegemony. Allison frowned. I'm not familiar with them. They are. Ilara seemed to search for appropriate words. A militaristic collective from the Galactic Rim. They rarely participate in Council affairs, but they've suddenly taken great interest in your case. What kind of protest? Captain Foster asked. They claim humans violated their territory before coming to the Council. They're demanding your delegation be turned over to them for questioning. A chill ran down Allison's spine. This was no coincidence. When does the Council hear this protest? Tomorrow, main session. High Counselor Trezix suggested you might want to prepare a response. Ilara hesitated. Ambassador, the Drax do not have a reputation for gentle questioning methods. After Ilara left, the team sat in stunned silence for a moment. We've never encountered the Drax, Dr. Bell stated flatly. Earth ships haven't gone far enough to reach the Galactic Rim. Exactly, Allison said. Someone is trying to remove us from Council protection. We're getting too close to something they don't want us to find. This accelerates our timeline, Captain Foster noted. We need to access those archives tonight. Allison made a quick decision. New plan. William and I will meet with Trezix. Request archive access for our cultural exchange. Keep the counselor occupied. Marcus, prepare the data packet on Earth music and art. Make it extensive enough to require lengthy review. Diana and Laura, you'll make use of that security gap during shift change. If we're caught in a restricted area, it could validate the Drax claims, Laura warned. Which is why you won't be caught, Allison replied firmly. 2 hours later, Allison and William stood in Trezix's private chambers, surrounded by crystal formations that seemed to grow from the walls. The High Counselor listened intently as they explained the concept of cultural exchange. Fascinating, Trazik said, examining the data crystal Dr. Bell had prepared. Your species has created such varied forms of artistic expression in your short history. Music especially reflects our development, William explained. From simple rhythms to complex harmonies that mathematically mirror our understanding of the universe. While they engaged Trezix, Captain Foster and Laura Reese made their way through service corridors towards Section 42. They wore maintenance uniforms procured by bribing a station worker with exotic earth spices. Shift change in 3 minutes, Laura whispered, checking her scanner. Remember, we have 90 seconds once the recalibration starts. They positioned themselves near a service entrance to the archives. When Laura's device signaled the security shift, they moved quickly through the door and into a dimly lit corridor lined with data storage units. At the far end stood the entrance to the ancestral records. 30 seconds, Laura warned as they approached the final door. Captain Foster placed a decryption device against the access panel. It cycled through combinations rapidly before the panel flashed green and the door slid open. 50 seconds remaining, Laura said as they entered. The terminal at the center should have the master index. They rushed to the terminal and Captain Foster began the search. Earth, quarantine, monitoring. The system displayed a list of classified files. She quickly transferred them to a data crystal. Time's up, Laura hissed. Security reset in progress. They slipped out just as the systems came back online, the door sealing behind them. Now they just needed to make their way back undetected. In Trezix's chambers, the cultural exchange was going well. The High Counselor seemed genuinely moved by Earth's classical music. These vibrations create emotional responses in humans, Trezix asked, fascinated. My species experiences something similar with crystalline resonances. Music connects us across differences, Allison said. Perhaps it can help bridge the gap between our worlds, Trezix's communication device chimed. The counselor checked it, then looked up with an expression Allison couldn't read. An interesting coincidence, Ambassador. The Drax representative has requested a private meeting with me before tomorrow's session. It seems your arrival has stirred considerable interest. We hope it's positive interest, William said carefully. That remains to be seen. Trezix rose, signaling the end of their meeting. I have authorized your cultural research in our historical archives. Use it wisely, Ambassador. Something in the counselor's tone made Allison wonder if Trezix knew more than they were letting on. Back in their quarters, the team reconvened. Captain Foster placed the data crystal in their reader, and they gathered around as the files appeared. This is it, Dr. Bell breathed. Proof of deliberate interference. The files contained records of a council expedition to Earth 5,000 years ago. Earth had been evaluated for potential membership but was deemed pre-technological. A standard monitoring beacon was placed with a scheduled return in 2,000 years. But look at this. Laura pointed to a later entry. 3,000 years ago, the monitoring mission was classified by executive order. No reason given. And here, William highlighted another section. 300 years ago, Earth was reclassified as a war world, with a note recommending continued isolation until the species stabilizes or eliminates itself. Both orders authorized by the same entity, Dr. Bell noted. The Drax hegemony, Allison sat back stunned. The Drax have been keeping humanity isolated, but why? What possible threat could a single planet pose to a species controlling territory at the galactic rim? We need to find out before the council session tomorrow, Captain Foster said grimly. Because if the Drax get their way, we may never make it back to Earth to warn them. Morning cycle brought a flurry of activity to the council station. News of the Drax protest against humanity had spread, drawing curious onlookers from across the station. The main council chamber was filled to capacity, with representatives from hundreds of worlds eager to witness this unusual dispute. The human team gathered in their quarters for one final strategy session. They had spent the night analyzing the stolen files and preparing their defense. The Drax have been manipulating information about Earth for thousands of years, Dr. Bell summarized, his voice tight with controlled anger. They've systematically erased or classified any positive reports about human development. But we still don't know why, William said, frustration evident in his voice. Captain Foster spread out the data they had compiled. We have evidence of their interference but not their motive. Without that, the Council might view this as a simple territorial dispute. Allison had been quiet, studying one particular file they had recovered. It contained fragmentary references to something called the convergence capability. The file was heavily encrypted, and they had only managed to decode portions. Whatever this convergence capability is, the Dracs are terrified of it, she said finally, and they believe humans possess it or will develop it. Laura looked skeptical. What capability could we possibly have that would frighten a species centuries ahead of us technologically? I don't know, Allison admitted, but it's our only leverage. A chime announced Alara's arrival. The liaison's normally pale skin had darkened to a deep purple. Extreme stress, Allison realized. Ambassador, the session begins in 30 minutes, Ilara said. I should warn you, the Drax representative has submitted extensive documentation alleging human violations of their sovereign territory. Fabricated documentation? Captain Foster said sharply. Alara's large eyes blinked slowly. Perhaps, but the Drax hold considerable influence with certain council factions. Many species fear them, including you, Allison asked gently. Alara hesitated. My people suffered greatly in a previous conflict with the Drax. I would not wish a similar fate on humanity. The being seemed to make a decision. Ambassador, there is something you should know. The Drax representative, Overlord Krace, arrived with a military escort. Their ship is armed beyond diplomatic protocols. They're prepared to take us by force if the council ruling doesn't go their way, Laura concluded. Allison nodded grimly. Then we need to make sure the ruling goes our way. Thank you, Alara. Your warning won't be forgotten. As they prepared to leave, Dr. Bell approached Allison privately. I've been running analyses on that convergence capability reference. Based on context and linguistic patterns, I believe it might refer to something genetic. Genetic? You think the Drax are concerned about human DNA? It's just a theory, but it would explain their long-term interest in isolating us rather than simply eliminating Earth centuries ago. Allison filed this information away as they headed to the council chamber. The massive space hummed with tension as they entered. At the center of the chamber, the 7 high counselors had taken their positions on the elevated platform. Across from the human delegation stood 3 tall, imposing figures, the Drax. They were reptilian in appearance, with mottled gray skin and vertical pupils and yellow eyes. Each stood nearly 7 feet tall, with powerful frames encased in dark armor that seemed to absorb light. The central figure wore a distinctive helmet marked with symbols of rank. High Counselor Trezix raised all 4 arms for silence. This extraordinary session will address the protest lodged by the Drax hegemony against the human delegation from Earth. Overlord Krace will present the Drax position, after which Ambassador Gray may respond. The Council will then deliberate and render judgment. Overlord Krace stepped forward. His voice was deep and resonant, with harmonics that made Allison's skin crawl. Honorable Council, 3 standard cycles ago. A human vessel violated Drax-protected space in Sector 17. When challenged, they fled rather than submitting to lawful inspection. Under Article 22 of the Galactic Charter, we demand these humans be remanded to Drax authority for questioning regarding their illegal incursion. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Sector 17 was indeed at the edge of recognized Drax territory. Furthermore, Krace continued, we have evidence that humans have been developing prohibited technologies in violation of Council directives. A holographic display appeared, showing technical schematics of weapon systems that Allison had never seen before. These are designs for quantum-phased weaponry, expressly forbidden by the Treaty of 7 Stars. Our intelligence confirms these weapons are being constructed in Earth's orbital facilities. The chamber erupted in concerned voices. Quantum-phased weapons could theoretically target specific genetic signatures. They were considered genocide devices. Allison stepped forward when Trezix signaled for her response. She kept her voice calm and clear, knowing it would be translated for all present. Honorable Council, the Drax claims are demonstrably false. No human ship has ever traveled to Sector 17. Our quantum displacement technology was only successfully tested 3 months ago, with our journey here being its first major deployment. She gestured, and Dr. Bell activated their own holographic display, showing the navigation logs from their ship. Our course took us nowhere near Drax territory. As for these weapon schematics, they are complete fabrications. Earth possesses no such technology, nor the theoretical framework to develop it. Crace's eyes narrowed. The human lies. They seek to deceive this council as they have deceived others. It is the Dracs who have practiced deception, Allison countered. She took a calculated risk. We have discovered evidence that the Drax hegemony has deliberately interfered with Earth's development for thousands of years, violating the non-interference treaty. She nodded to Captain Foster, who displayed the files they had recovered. 300 years ago, the Drax falsely classified Earth as a war world, ensuring our continued isolation. They destroyed the warning beacons meant to alert us to galactic law, then punished us for violations we could not know about. The council chamber grew hushed as representatives absorbed this accusation. Crace's posture became rigid. These are serious allegations, Trezek said. What evidence supports them? Council records, accessed through authorized channels during a cultural exchange, Allison stated, carefully omitting how they had obtained the classified portions. The authorization codes on the falsified reports traced directly to Drax leadership. Crace stepped forward aggressively. These humans have illegally accessed classified information. This proves their disregard for council authority. We accessed only what was permitted, Allison responded calmly. The question remains, why have the Drax worked so hard to keep humanity isolated? What do they fear from us? She turned to face the entire council. We believe it concerns something called the convergence capability. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Drax delegation visibly recoiled. Overlord Crace's yellow eyes widened in what appeared to be genuine shock. This human knows nothing, he snarled. The convergence is a myth, a theoretical construct only. High Counselor Trezix leaned forward, crystal body glinting in the chamber lights. Convergence capability? This term does not appear in open council records. Because the Drax have systematically removed or classified all references to it, Allison explained. Yet fragments remain, enough to establish a pattern of deliberate suppression. She turned to face Crace directly. The Drax have kept humanity quarantined not because we're dangerous, but because they fear what we might become. They've manipulated council policy based on a threat that doesn't exist, violating the sovereign rights of an entire species. The crystalline counselor's voice took on a formal tone. Overlord Crace, does the Drax hegemony wish to explain the meaning of this convergence capability and its relevance to humanity? For a moment, Crace seemed to struggle with the decision. Then his posture straightened, becoming almost militant. The details remain classified under Security Protocol Omega, he said. Suffice to say that human genetic structure contains certain anomalies that could pose an existential threat to galactic stability if allowed to develop unchecked. Our actions have been in the interest of all spacefaring species. William stepped forward. Translation: they've kept us isolated because of something in our DNA that they can't control. That's not protection, it's oppression. The chamber filled with voices as representatives debated among themselves. Allison watched the High Counselors carefully. Trezix and several others appeared troubled by the Drax claims, while the reptilian counselor seemed to side with Crace. Finally, Trezix raised arms for silence. This matter requires careful deliberation. The council will recess for one standard cycle to review all evidence presented. Both delegations will remain in their assigned quarters until summoned. As they were escorted from the chamber, Allison caught Crace's gaze. The Drax Overlord's yellow eyes held not just anger, but unmistakable fear. Whatever this convergence capability was, the mere mention of it had shaken him deeply. The night cycle brought an uneasy quiet to the human quarters. Council guards had been posted outside their door, for their protection officially, though Allison suspected the guards were also there to ensure they remained contained. The team gathered around the central table, speaking in hushed tones despite Dr. Bell's jamming device. The Drax ship has moved to Docking Bay 7, Laura reported. It's the closest bay to our position, and 3 of their soldiers have taken positions in the main corridor, Captain Foster added. They are not even trying to be subtle about it. Allison studied the station schematic they had compiled. They're preparing to extract us regardless of the Council's decision. We need leverage, something that would make the Council take immediate action. We need the truth about this convergence capability, William said. The complete files, not just fragments. Dr. Bell, who had been unusually quiet, looked up from his datapad. I've been analyzing our genetic database against the references in the fragments we recovered. There's a pattern emerging. He displayed a complex molecular structure. Human DNA contains sequences that are remarkably adaptable, more so than any other known species. We can survive in a wider range of environments, adapt to more varied conditions. That's hardly enough to terrify an advanced species like the Drax, Laura objected. Not by itself, Dr. Bell agreed, but there's more. These adaptive sequences can be triggered by environmental factors, and once triggered, the changes can be passed to subsequent generations much more rapidly than standard evolution would allow. Captain Foster frowned. You're saying humans can evolve quickly in response to new environments? Exponentially more quickly than the galactic average, Dr. Bell confirmed. And there's evidence this ability is accelerating. Each generation of humans shows greater potential for adaptation than the last. Convergence, Allison murmured. They believe we're converging toward some genetic breakthrough. A breakthrough that terrifies them, William added. A soft chime interrupted their discussion. Allison tensed, expecting council guards or perhaps Drax soldiers. Instead, the door slid open to reveal Ilara and High Counselor Trezix. The team rose in surprise. Trezix's crystalline form caught the room's light, sending fractured rainbows across the walls. Ilara quickly closed the door behind them. Ambassador, Trezix said without preamble, your delegation is in danger. From the Drax, Allison stated. It wasn't a question. Yes, they have filed a formal request to have this matter removed from council jurisdiction, claiming it involves pre-existing treaties between Earth and the hegemony. That's absurd, Captain Foster said. We've never had contact with them before now. Truth is irrelevant to the Drax when their interests are threatened, Trezix replied. And make no mistake, they see humanity as an existential threat. Because of this convergence capability, William said. Trezix's crystalline body shifted, a sign of discomfort. That term has not been spoken openly in council chambers for 3,000 years. You know what it means, Allison realized. You've known all along, I suspected, the High Counselor admitted. When you mentioned Arctic monitoring stations, certain historical patterns became clear. The Crystalline Confederation has its own records, separate from the Council's. Will you tell us? Dr. Bell asked. Trezix seemed to consider carefully before responding. The convergence refers to a theoretical state of genetic development, where a species gains the ability to absorb and integrate beneficial traits from other species, not through technological means but through natural adaptation. The humans exchanged shocked glances. That's impossible, Dr. Bell said. Genetic material doesn't work that way. For most species, no, Trezix agreed. But early studies of human DNA showed unusual properties. Your adaptive sequences can mimic and eventually incorporate beneficial traits from other organisms after prolonged exposure. Are you saying humans could eventually adapt to have traits from alien species? Laura asked incredulously. In theory, yes. Over many generations with consistent exposure. The Drax believe this ability will eventually accelerate to the point where humans could rapidly adapt to any environment or challenge, becoming effectively unstoppable. Allison struggled to process this information. That's why they wanted us isolated. They're afraid we'll, absorb traits from advanced species? They fear you would become the dominant species in the galaxy, Ilara said quietly, able to outcompete everyone else by simply adapting faster than any other life form. But we're nowhere near that level of development, Dr. Bell protested. Not yet, Trezix acknowledged. But your species has shown remarkable advancement even in isolation. The Drax believe it's only a matter of time, perhaps a few thousand years, perhaps only centuries, so they plan to eliminate us now, while they still can, Captain Foster concluded grimly. Trezix's crystalline form glinted. The Drax have already taken action. They have issued an ultimatum to the Council, turn over the human delegation by morning cycle, or they will consider it an act of war. And the Council's response? Allison asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. The Council avoids war at all costs, Trezix said. Many will advocate surrendering you to preserve galactic peace. You included? William asked directly. No, the High Counselor replied. The Crystalline Confederation believes in evolution, in potential. What the Drax fear, we see as possibility. That is why I am here to help you escape. Allison's eyes narrowed. Why would you risk your position to help us? Because the Drax have manipulated Council policy for too long, Because your species deserves the chance to develop without interference, and because I believe the galaxy will be better with humanity in it than without. Ilara stepped forward. I've prepared a shuttle in Maintenance Bay 12. It has been programmed to rendezvous with your ship, which is still being held in quarantine dock. The bay is minimally guarded during night cycle, Trezix added. You have approximately 2 hours before the Drax realize my delaying tactics in the emergency session are just that, tactics. Allison studied the crystalline being carefully. What happens to you when they discover you helped us? Political consequences, certainly. But the Crystalline Confederation is too valuable an ally for the Drax to risk direct action against me. Captain Foster looked skeptical. And when we return to Earth, the Drax will simply send ships to finish what they started. Perhaps, Trezix admitted, but not immediately. Your escape will force the issue into full Council investigation. That will take time. Time for Earth to prepare. Allison made her decision. We'll need evidence to convince our government and to present to the full Council when we return. Trezix produced a crystal data storage device, complete records of Drax interference with Earth's development, including their manipulation of Council policy. And this, the being added a second crystal, contains everything my people know about human adaptive potential. It may help your scientists understand what you truly are. Laura checked her scanner. Guard patrol in 20 seconds. We must go, Trezix said. Ilara will guide you through maintenance corridors to the shuttle bay. As they prepared to leave, Allison turned to the High Counselor. Thank you. Humanity won't forget this. When you return to the stars, Trezix replied, remember this moment. Remember that not all species fear your potential. Some of us welcome it. The corridor outside was momentarily clear as Ilara led them through a service entrance into the station's maintenance tunnels. These narrow passages, designed for maintenance drones and station engineers, wound through the structure like veins in a living organism. Stay close, Ilara whispered. These tunnels can be confusing. They moved quickly but cautiously, pausing at intersections as Ilara checked for patrols. After 20 tense minutes, they reached a small access door. Maintenance Bay 12 is beyond this door, Ilara explained. The shuttle is prepped for launch. It will automatically dock with your ship and override the quarantine protocols. What about you? William asked. Won't you be punished for helping us? I will claim you overpowered me, Ilara replied with what might have been a smile. My people are known for physical weakness but diplomatic usefulness. It will be believed. Captain Foster checked the weapons Trezix had provided. Ready when you are, Ambassador. Allison nodded. Open the door. The maintenance bay was dimly lit and cluttered with equipment. At the center sat a small shuttle, its engines humming quietly in standby mode. They moved swiftly toward it, staying low behind cargo containers. They were halfway to the shuttle when alarm klaxons suddenly blared throughout the station.
Red emergency lights began to pulse. They've discovered you're missing, Ilara said urgently.
Hurry. They abandoned stealth and ran for the shuttle. Laura reached it first, slapping the access panel. The door hissed open, revealing a cramped interior. Inside, quickly, she urged, taking a defensive position. Dr. Bell and William scrambled aboard, followed by Captain Foster. Allison turned to Ilara. Come with us. It's not safe for you here now. The pale being shook its head. My place is here. Someone must speak truth to the council about what happened today. A harsh voice echoed through the bay. Halt immediately! 3 Drax soldiers appeared at the main entrance, weapons raised. Behind them stood Overlord Crace, his yellow eyes blazing with fury. The humans are,